The stay-at-home lifestyle has drastically changed people's media consumption habits, and as a result, engaging consumers has become a land grab for traditional media companies and brands alike. Amid this reality, new advertising ecosystems are emerging as competitive options, and online dating is one of those categories forging an insurgent path. I'm delighted to welcome a good friend, Jim Lanzone, the CEO at Tinder, to share how the company is setting out to redefine marketing and build engaged audiences. Jim, welcome.
Thanks. Good to be here.
Jim, you're about 6 months into your role as CEO at Tinder. Congratulations, first of all. I'd like to start out by talking about your journey to kind of where you are today. You've spent your career at the helm of digitally native companies, most recently leading the digital transformation of CBS Corporation, and earlier in your career, founding Clicker Media and serving as the CEO of Ask.com. What was it that got you to kind of jump into a community-focused company like Tinder?
Yeah, well, first of all, awesome to be here with you. I left CBS at the end of 2019, was just starting to figure out my next thing. And I knew the team at IAC, which, as you know, formerly owned Match Group, and Tinder is the largest part of Match Group. There just aren't that many blue blood internet companies that has big of a brand and as iconic of a product as Tinder. They're looking for a CEO, right? These days, founders, they don't leave, and this is one of those ones where those opportunities just don't come along that often. Tinder is number one in over 100 countries. I mean, it's just a juggernaut, and the ability to come in and do the things that I love to do, like build products, drive teams, drive growth. It's huge, and it's huge on an international front. So just kind of checked all those boxes, and I guess after having been through all the streaming wars and the search wars, it was time to do something in this space.
Get into the dating wars. Well, Jim, normally, and you've been so good at this. I'm not saying all the way to hairballs, but you've also been pretty good at finding those complicated ones and getting them right-sided. And this one was in pretty good shape, but the opportunity, as you said, is unique when you have founder-led companies, and so good on you for opportunity and capitalizing on the opportunity. Let me kind of look back, Jim. We're still at the beginning of 2021, but last year, as pandemics raged around the world and social distancing became a new way of life, it was arguably not the best time to be single. I wouldn't know. I'm happily married for 46 years, but I can only imagine. But, it didn't stop people from dating. And the only way a global pandemic would allow that was online. In fact, as I understand, in April of last year, Tinder announced that it had received over 3 billion swipes in one day, the most ever documented in the company's 8-year history. Are there other metrics or kind of KPIs that show users are increasingly engaged on Tinder and continuing at that kind of breakneck speed? And what does that tell you? And a little further, what does that tell you about how people are spending their time consuming media during a pandemic?
Yeah, I think they're totally related. Similar things happen to both categories. So I got here at the end of July, a few months into the pandemic, and I get to teach a whole class now on taking over a company over Zoom. But crazy. I still haven't met most of the team in person. It's been pretty crazy on that. But the team here received questions from the press right at the beginning of the pandemic that said things like, "Are you going to go out of business, or are you going to shut the company down?" Because they had just assumed, it would be dead. And less than a month later, had that 3 billion swipes day. The company's had over 4 trillion, by the way, in its history. It's a huge number for the company that invented the swipe.
And that was just on my profile.
Yeah, everyone's trying to find you.
That's it.
But yeah, so and as things went along, it proved out that initially people were trying to figure out their way through the pandemic, but single people especially needed human connection, and using Tinder, the number one way to do that online became the only solution at that point, right? You couldn't go to bars, you weren't going to go out, and people needed it. And what's interesting is, it started evolving beyond Tinder as a tool, to find people, and more as a platform where they would use it to engage. So as an example, conversations were up 20% year over year throughout the whole year. And the depth of conversations, which you would think would stay constant, was 25% up. So they were really going on there and seeking each other out for other things. And I think you bring up a good point. It ties back to a lot of categories where the trend was towards a product like Tinder or to streaming services, as my past life. And the pandemic just greatly accelerated the change that was already underway.
God knows. What we've seen in so many aspects, Jim, is that which would have taken 5 months or 5 years, took 5 minutes or 5 days. We saw it so often with digital commerce and the like, but just everything. And, it's interesting. Anecdotally, I was on a conversation with somebody the other day and I said, when do you think peer pressure kicks in? And they said, what do you mean? I said, well, if you're in a pitch, I was speaking to an agency, and you find out the competition is showing up in person, do you feel that need to show up in person? And how are you going to manage that? And, it's such an interesting dynamic as to what's going to happen. We're looking for herd immunity, but herd mentality, I think, is going to be interesting for us to watch just as students of business and how we conduct business. Separate, we could spend the rest of the day talking about that.
Believe it or not, I think actually this dating category, which really is extended now into social discovery. I don't know if you saw the Match Group just spent almost $2 billion on HyperConnect, a South Korean company that's purely in social discovery and not in dating at all. But that has been the trend in Asia, which is more towards finding new people to interact with online, either in person on video or through avatars or other means. And that trend took off over here as well. So even people would meet through Tinder and then go on dates on Animal Crossing, like meet on an island in Animal Crossing. Or they would, play games together online, or they would put in their bio that they were looking to talk to somebody about the election and the craziness, or they want to talk about Bridgerton. You started seeing these things, these virtual relationships that would start to happen. And that really is a big part of the future. And maybe not only that, although, we're not going to be judgmental, that's okay. But leading, they'll do that first and then lead to other.
Yeah, look, I think we're going to be in a hybrid life. I think we're going to be live-like, we're going to be live, we're going to be online, we're going to be kind of dancing on a lot of different dance floors. But I think it's going to be a distributed life in that way, and a kind of a hybrid for all of us. Going back to the early days of Tinder, about a decade ago, I think, it was launched originally as a dating app on college campuses. But, those 20-year-olds who were on the app have now grown up and completely immersed themselves in social apps, and they see the virtual world as an integral and kind of seamless part of their everyday life. It's not, oh, it's over there, it's in the center. Online matches aren't just about dating anymore. As you said, it's about fulfilling life experiences. It's about interacting with people in a different way. Do you think this is largely kind of a Gen Z thing?
Well, Gen Z is already taking over. For us, it's over 50% of our audience. And a huge percentage of our audience is under 30. And they are the generations leading the charge into these, more of a virtual world, virtual life, and that's how they meet. And then they have these experiences together. And I think that the pandemic, again, as such a touchstone for things like this, drove these new behaviors. So we have a product called Passport, and it allows you, it used to you have to pay for it, but then it was during the pandemic, we made it free. And what you're able to do is drop into any town that you want. So let's say you want to drop into New York or Atlanta or Austin and start to meet people in that area because people were spending time virtually. And so that behavior, by the way, Gen Z took that and made it a meme on TikTok. It has over 70 million views of watching people use Tinder Passport and meet people that way. So yeah, between things like that, again, doing activities together online, but again, I do think that reaches a certain point that then bleeds over into meeting in real life as well. But I just think that this behavior goes across generations for sure, but started with Gen Z.
So Jim, Tinder's making a lot of moves to kind of help users, I don't know, I'd put this in air quotes, but stay inside, both within the app and at home, from virtual spaces and live events. I think, swipe nights? At some point, hopefully soon, I had my second shot yesterday, so I'm feeling pretty good about that, but I did. pandemic restrictions are going to ease up, and God willing, people are going to be able to see each other in person again soon. What do you think the kind of behaviors that we've cultivated inside will translate as we kind of make our way back to outside life?
Well, I think one thing that we've seen, and I think it should make you really optimistic for people going forward, is if you kind of look back at the way, if you think about meeting in bars or meeting socially, and it was, kind of transactional that way, and dating apps, while ascending to be the main way that people meet even before the pandemic and went even further during the pandemic. And by the way, not just for dating. I mean, 40% of all marriages in the US are driven online, and Tinder probably drives at least 25% of those. So people don't normally think of Tinder that way, but it drives probably over 10% of all marriages in the United States. So those are all trends. But what we saw is that people then needed to be able to do activities together because they couldn't go to restaurants. They couldn't just meet for a drink. So what you saw was people meeting to hiking, meeting to go, to the park. I mean, there's all these different types of activities. In fact, we saw a 3x increase in the use of the term roller skating in people meeting to go do that during the pandemic. And that's interesting. I actually think that this, not only do online dating apps, they're very efficient for the quality of a match that you would get. And people have really discovered that. And it's a great way to find somebody who's right for you. But then when you finally then go meet after kind of doing more online than you used to, you might go do like really activities to really get to know each other. And I think that's actually a trend that we've seen. And I could see that absolutely continuing. I mean, either way, we're probably headed into some version of the summer of love or autumn of love when this thing is over. And I think people are going to be ready to party for sure.
Or the roaring 20s. But Jim, look, you have for a long time been somebody that I look up to in this industry because you are a veteran of so many different aspects of this digital explosion over the last 20 years. And to see you in this position does my heart good. And I will tell you, I think you got a tiger by the tail, as you well know, with how many trillion swipes did you say?
Oh, in history, multiple trillions.
I mean, you're starting to sound like the government.
Per day, it's billions.
Yeah, you're starting to sound like the government deficits. But on that note, Jim Lanzone, I want to thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Michael.
Thank you so much, Jim, for sharing your vision and perspective on the future of consumer engagement, as online dating has certainly surged over the past year. Now I'd like to welcome three special guests: Jeremy Gorman, the Chief Business Officer at Snap; Doug Scott, the Chief Marketing Officer at Twitch; and Dara Treseder, the SVP and Head of Global Marketing and Communications at Peloton. I'd like to invite the three of you to dig into how your brands and your particular circumstances are forging new paths to build community. Let me just start with a kind of a general question. And given the reliance and dominance of digital technology coupled with the stay-at-home world, it can often feel that the human element of interaction has been lost. Whilst this is a great way to engage, and we've all learned how to do it, there is a need to rethink marketing. And I guess I'd really start with, Dara, from your perspective. I said general, but I'm going to be specific. How has Peloton navigated its way to make sure that the experience, and God knows yours is live and live-like, but retains that human element? I mean, obviously the whole concept of Peloton was that before we needed to, we were communicating in a virtual way with the instructors. But did you have to re-examine it in light of the pandemic?
I think one of the things that we had to really do was make sure that we were showcasing more of how those interactions and connections were happening on the platform. So when Peloton first started, we obviously had to educate people on what connected fitness is, because then nobody thought that from the comfort of their home, they could get an incredible workout experience and also be connected not only to the instructors, but to each other. But obviously, as Peloton created that connected fitness category, it's all the craze these days, right? Everyone's bought into it. And so for us, the focus has been, how do we make sure that some of these powerful elements that connect our members, some of these powerful things, whether it's things like high fives that enable you to kind of, give each other a little bit of a pep push through that, that minute of the workout, or it's things like tags that allow you to create these micro communities within the larger community, showcasing those features, but also more importantly, telling the stories of how our members are utilizing those features to stay connected, to stay centered, to stay active, has been a powerful focus for us. So instead of just marketing the products, we're starting to really showcase more of the fullness and the richness of the experience.
And Dara, I would turn to Doug for a moment and say, community is obviously critical to what you do, Doug, as well, in a different way, but it's critical. How have you looked at it through that lens?
Well, when you asked this question, I sort of, I smiled for a second, because like Twitch, that's like what Twitch is. Twitch is this distillation of humans connecting around things that they care about. And, people will come to Twitch for the content because they might be interested in games or music or whatever. But they stay because they connect to a creator and they connect to a community around that creator. And that's really what ends up happening. So in this moment, everything that Twitch has ever been built to be, everything that we build from a product standpoint, everything that we communicate from a marketing standpoint is really about that connection. And, I've been a part of a bunch of communities for a long time. I've been in the video game business for a long time, so very aware of Twitch. And the connection is real. It's deep. And I started streaming during COVID, which was, I was in a band, and then obviously my band couldn't play anymore. So I started streaming and playing guitar on Twitch. And the connection that you make to your community is super deep and real. And there's a lot of people I know who will watch, but then there's a ton of people I don't know who show up every time. And it's such a positive and deep thing. And, like many people, I've lost some people during the COVID period where, I would turn to streaming and to that community as well as a catharsis, and they were always there to support me. So it's a really real and enduring connection that gets built on Twitch. So it just permeates everything that we do on every front.
Again, community, I'm going to come back to that because community is at the center of so much of what we're talking about. But let's focus on kind of entertaining and connecting. I mean, I think that if you looked at it and said staying entertained and connected to the outside world was certainly a priority. We've seen crazy, ridiculous, massive lifts in video consumption, social media, etc. Jeremy, you guys released some stats in December about the user base, and personal responsibility came up. I'm curious, can you talk about people's kind of expression of that personal, I'm responsible, that personal responsibility to create change, to create movement, that, things that people could be passionate about?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm kind of keying off what Dara and Doug said about community. It's really at the center of everything we do. So one of the trends that we saw during COVID, but I think that stay with us, is that this generation talks with pictures, the generation we serve, which is 13 to 34, more or less. So mathematically speaking, it's 90% of 13 to 24-year-olds in the US and 75% of 13 to 34-year-olds in the US. And that generation is a very active generation. So when I say like talking with pictures, I mean, instead of, me texting you with your thumbs, it's I'm going to take a picture of myself. This is what I'm doing. And that connection has been really, really real and really important during COVID. So we have accelerated to 5 billion pictures taken, pictures and videos taken every day in the camera, which is nuts. But the generation itself, they care deeply about the communities around them, and they really want to associate with brands that are doing good for the world. So it's a really active generation. They are taking a responsibility, I'll give an example, is that we had a mask lens and people were putting it on their face. They were sharing it with their friends. We worked in partnership with Ad Council and some others to do some education around COVID. And it was really cool to see this generation embrace it, because in theory, it's the generation that mostly wants to just be somewhere with their friends. And the fact they couldn't, but still took it incredibly seriously, really, really mattered. And they get engaged in all types of civic activities. And we see the brand alignment with people who also care about civic responsibility being critical to this generation.
It's not that feeling of what can you do for me? It's what can we do together? I think I've seen that. I've seen those communities, and again, that passion really coming through. Dara, let me switch gears again. Look, there's no doubt that one of the great stories of this past year has been Peloton. You offer something that's so important. It's about physical and mental well-being, the ability to stay healthy, and again, using that word, building the community from your home. But one of the ways you've been doing that is with the, and I want to get it right, the Peloton Artist Series. I think in November of last year, you announced a very big deal with Beyonce, and it was kind of rooted in the celebration of music and, you know, being a central component of Peloton, but it's fitness, it's so much more, it's entertainment, it's a concert, a therapy session, and the art, it's kind of embodies that. Do you find that kind of riders are turning to Peloton for more than just that 30 or 40-minute ride?
Absolutely. You know, I think you said it. You said it when you said people are coming here for their physical and mental health. And people are also coming because the content that our team is putting out is truly engaging. It's truly motivating. You know, you so many times, you know, I'm having a conversation, whether it's in a WhatsApp group or talking, and you see people saying, well, I was trying to decide whether I was going to take this class or watch Bridgerton. So it's very much, you know, it's very much a part of culture, right? And so this artist series that we've been doing, which have been very successful, it allows us to tap into culture. And many of the artists are members, Peloton members. So, you know, Beyonce is a Peloton member, right? And she's been a member for several years. And as a member, music and participating in this artist series and seeing the power of music and how music comes together with our instructors and the storytelling and just the experience, that is just a phenomenal experience. Seeing what that provides, she wanted to be able to bring that to the Peloton platform. And so it was really wonderful for us to come together with her to be able to bring that to life in such a powerful way. And you see that happen even in very organic ways, right? On Instagram, you had Lizzo and Miley Cyrus kind of starting this challenge of who can, you know, run on the Peloton tread or you know, take a spin, and as Alicia Keys did on the Peloton bike while singing as a way of building stamina. And this is just something that they're just doing because they're members of the community. They love the power of music. They love how it all comes to life. And so the Peloton Artist Series for us is a great way that we're able to bring music in and have music be a way that we're connecting to different audiences within our community. We're telling different stories, and we're really bringing new and refreshing and engaging experiences. So this is something that, you know, we're continuing to do. And just another point on this that I think is really important is music tears down division. Music is something that just unites all of us. And so with the Beyonce partnership, we were able to really increase cultural access. We worked with her to, you know, provide digital memberships to 10 HBCUs, all the students, they're increasing cultural access. Because typically fitness, and when you think about physical fitness and health, because of some of the historical challenges, there's been hesitation from certain communities, especially Black community, about feeling like we really belong, feeling like these are spaces where we can really show up as our full selves. And what I love about what we're doing at Peloton is not only are we using music as a powerful way to entertain and connect to culture and really motivate you with your workout, but it's also a powerful way for us to increase access and really help all of us come together and unite, right? Our mission is to unite the world through fitness, and artist series and music is a powerful way we're doing that too.
Well, you know, as a spinner, I can't compare to Alicia Keys. But if I'm being totally
None
honest,
of us really can.
yeah, no, God knows there's very few like her. But if I'm being totally honest, I've been on no video on many, 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 many calls over this past year, and been told to go on mute because I'm breathing too heavy, and it's from being on my bike. So, I'm not singing an aria, but I'm giving advice where I get the opportunity on my bike. So, if we're all telling the truth, I'm sure I'm not alone in that. We've seen acceleration at a level that is unparalleled, and it's also forced us to reimagine digital storytelling and the experience, kind of meshing traditional and physical experiences, being limited, but certainly gaming, entertainment, esports, these things have just grown exponentially. Doug, I think, Twitch, as I understood it, went from about 17.5 million average daily visitors to like 30 million, which underscores the demand for kind of live interactive entertainment. What do you think, aside from the obvious, has contributed to that?
Well, yeah, obviously we benefited a ton from people spending more time at home and looking for that connection. But there's a couple of other things that I think contribute to it. One is, first of all, both concurrently, but also as an independent trend, gaming continues to build popularity and adoption. I think that it's almost 80%, something like 79% of U.S. Of people in the U.S. are gamers based on their behavior. They may not all ascribe to that term as a self-descriptor, but their behavior is that they are gamers. And obviously mobile gaming has been a huge part of that drive as well. But gaming has just exploded in terms of its popularity. And that's one of the things that people turn to Twitch for, is as they become passionate about a game. Twitch is where our community around that game is often forming. But our growth has not only been in gaming at all. We've seen growth in basically all other forms of content, whether it's music or sports. Just our biggest category is actually called just chatting, where it's just people talking. And and because they can talk about their interests, and then they find other like-minded people, and then they connect, and that's where where that flywheel sort of starts. And the truth is that live streaming is not an experience that many people have actually had yet. I think it got accelerated dramatically during the course of the pandemic, because all of a sudden people became much more facile with online video chatting and connection. And all of a sudden, like, Twitch has all these communities around their interests that are just sitting there waiting for them. But it was that familiarity with some of the technology that I think also drove adoption of Twitch. And the truth is that live streaming is really different from other forms of online video, because it's not really so much about what's happening on the screen. It's about the community that's there and the interaction and your actual participation in that moment. That's what drives Twitch. It's the participation. It's not necessarily what's being shown on the screen. And as a result, I think when people find that, and they find that real human connection, it absolutely just bonded them. The last thing I think is, and this is a really important piece for us at Twitch, which is that when you come to Twitch, and it's not all the time, but overwhelmingly, you have a very safe and positive experience. It's our top priority. We invest more in that organization than anything, in trying to build tools that ultimately support that, and having a huge trust and safety team. We have super stringent community guidelines we apply, very rigorously. But probably the secret of Twitch is that there are these volunteers called moderators, who basically sign up to just volunteer to support a channel, a creator. And when a creator goes live, their mods pile in, and we built a ton of tools to empower mods to make sure that chat stays really positive, that they have the power to ban people if they start to troll, and that ultimately they can really create an environment that's very welcoming. Now, it's not all the time, of course. People can slip through and things can happen, but as far as the interwebs is concerned, it's a pretty safe place. And so as a result, it's something that I think when people come, they have a positive experience. That's been huge.
Well, that's critically important. So, Jeremy, I want to let our listeners in on a little secret. I'm going to talk about our first meeting I would say our first date. And I'm going to try and keep it clean, but I will let all of you in on a little secret. My first meeting with Jeremy, we commandeered. I'm using a better word than stole.
Theft, yeah. Grand Theft Auto, yeah.
Grand Theft Auto. We commandeered a golf cart to sneak away. I said, "What the hell? It's sitting here. We could just take it." That was almost 2 years ago, I guess, right?
Over two, yeah.
Yeah, a little. I guess October.
Stream in 2018, yeah.
Yeah, so close to 2.5 years, almost 3 years. What a difference! I mean, I read something the other day that referenced how Evan Spiegel has played the long game. Well, so did you. You played the long game, because there were those who shook their heads when you made the move to join Snap in the chief business officer role, because there were some challenges. And, those are all public. I mean, we're not saying anything that people who were students of Snap at that time didn't understand. And here you are 2.5 years later, and, it's been quite an amazing story in terms of the solid growth and the acceptance. But talking about mods, talking about what Doug talked about, this is an issue you and I have spent a lot of time on. How you at Snap have been consistent with your views on those very topics, on moderating, if you will, yet letting that communication be free, amongst the participants, if you will, also kind of monitoring it. I guess it's a compound question. 2.5 years later, I'm certain, if based on nothing other than the stock price, you're happy you made the move. But the difference 2.5 years later, riff for us a little on that, if you wouldn't mind, Jeremy.
Sure. Well, first I'll answer the most important question here, which is Bridgerton or Peloton, which arguably I'm going to say both with a slight edge to Bridgerton, because it's not like as painful at the end. But both amazing nonetheless.
When you finish watching the Bridgerton, then you can take the year of Shonda Rhimes class.
Exactly. I mean, it's really great. I left Amazon, so as Doug can attest, that has also not been a bad stock situation. So having that, that all aside, I think, actually what Doug was talking about really resonates with me, and is frankly the reason that I became so enamored with Snap in this meeting that I think, some people have heard about, some people haven't, but effectively I got a call the same day that I met Evan. I met him that day, and everything transpired within 24 hours. I'd never met him before. I had tried to learn Snapchat in the Uber on the way to my interview, and the next day was done deal. And I will tell you basically exactly what Doug just said is what drew me to the company. He absolutely plays the long game. The team is incredible. And in this particular instance, the way that they designed the app long ago from the very beginning around sort of human-centered communication, how there aren't things like likes and comments that are public facing because they didn't want that to be a part of the design, so that people could feel free to express themselves in the moment without worrying about being judged, I thought was really spectacular. The Discover section it's our sort of broadcast section, for lack of better terms, is hand curated. We don't allow anyone on the platform to broadcast to the whole community at all. And so it's, partners like NBC News and BuzzFeed and everybody in that section. So brands can feel safe, but also so the community can feel safe. And then there's just so many little awesome things that they thought of so long ago in terms of keeping the community safe, knowing that we have like a really important generation in our hands. Things like friend requests have to be bi-directional. So like, I can't just follow you, you have to follow me back. Like we have to become actual friends. The fact that Bitmoji is how you are represented on Snap before anybody's friends. So if I'm looking for you, you'd be represented as your Bitmoji. And while that might not seem super important, what it does prevent is anyone just scrolling through and like looking for pretty girls to add. Everybody is represented as a cartoon, more or less. I mean, a really cool and humanizing cartoon, but that's really important. And then additionally, even as we've grown throughout this period and launched a product like Spotlight, for instance, which is short form video content, it has that kind of moderation in it as well. We've been able to do it and stick to our principles. So we launched it in November. We have 100 million monthly users in Spotlight already posting content, same principles with like no public likes and comments. And then beyond that, what's been really cool is that we moderate everything in there as well. So to Doug's point, like, this is no easy undertaking. The teams are amazing, but it's a combination of machine learning and hand curation, where if something starts to accelerate in terms of a popular video, it automatically gets reviewed before it can accelerate further to ensure that it's the appropriate content for the audience, that it, you know, doesn't have anything you wouldn't want to see or hear in there. And it's just a really special place. And so I was just frankly totally struck by the vision, by the enthusiasm, by the, like, honestly, fortitude to get through what I would consider to be one of the more challenging times in 20 of tech companies. And so I was like, I have to get on that train. And I'm so glad that I did. I'm so glad that I learned what I learned in my previous roles to bring to the company. And then the team here is just an incredible group of special people. We do have a Snap Fit group and we do Peloton together. So it's cool to like be with both of you in this environment because it's also connected, even though we don't all know each other.
Well, I feel even more special about our golf cart story if it was part of helping you get on that train. You know, I'm remiss to not say amongst the three of you, if I look at Peloton, Snap, and Amazon, I can't think of three better stocks over the last period of time. I know none of us do this just for the stock, but not a bad plus to doing the work that we get to do and be passionate about.
Just need a Tesla person on here, and then you're good.
Guys, as we close out today's session, I'm going to ask you to fill in the blank. And the question is, don't underestimate the impact that blank is going to have on marketing and media in the next 5 years. Each of you get to put your own word in there.
That's a good one. I would say don't underestimate what authenticity is going to do for media and marketing in the next 5 years.
Amen.
Always keep it real.
Amen. Love that. Doug?
I would say don't underestimate the desire to participate amongst consumers and what that will have on marketing and media in the next couple of years. People want to create, they want to be part of creation, they want to engage with things. We talked a little bit about how engaged particularly the younger generation is, you know, and they have the power to avoid things and they have the power to dive deep. So I think if you can find ways to really allow people to participate, there's real power in that.
I love that. If you put authenticity and participation together, it serves up a great cleanup spot to you, Jeremy, to put your word or words in there.
Sure. Yeah. Don't underestimate the power of augmented reality and the importance of media and marketing. Not a self-serving message. I mean, a little, I guess, but so true. We have the ability to get a virtual product into the hands of customers and allow them to experience it from their living room, in my opinion, will be the next hockey stick moment for marketing. It's awesome when you see it in action with shoe try on, which we've done with like Gucci and Dior, and makeup try on, like we've done with Too Faced and Sally Hansen. It's unbelievable. So I would say don't underestimate the power of AR and connection and positivity and authenticity.
There you go. Guys, I know that our audience will have learned a lot today, and I want to personally thank Jeremy Gorman, Doug Scott, and Dara Treseder for joining me today. And of course, Jim Lanzone, who joined us earlier. I thank you all. And here's a hope and a prayer that next year we get to be in Austin when we do this. So as we might say, next year in Austin, but thank you for joining me, and thank you for making this interesting, authentic, and all the words we just used. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.